Welcome to this week's edition of Black Authors Matter TV, where we interview the latest movers and shakers in the African American literary community. You'll meet some old friends, discover new ones, and stay abreast of the latest book developments around the country and even the world. So sit back and relax for the next 2 hours with Black Authors Matter TV co-hosts Gwen Richardson and Dr. Rhonda Lawson.
Good evening and welcome to the April 1st edition of Black Authors Matter TV. I'm Gwen Richardson, your host for tonight. And it's not an April Fool's, but Rhonda won't be on the show tonight or next week because she has a professional training thing she had to be out of town for on the road. If she comes on, she'll be popping in, but she won't be on for the bulk of the show. And so you all have just me for tonight, and we have a great lineup of guests. I have some housekeeping notes on the top end of the show. One, our Black Authors Matter TV Awards voting process is ongoing, but it ends at midnight Thursday, April 3rd. So those of you all who have been guests on the show, you all are part of the nomination process. If you were part of the show from March 11th, I think, of last year to March 4th of this year. And so you will, you've already hopefully been telling your friends. I've been seeing a lot of posts about it on social media, people asking people to vote for them. We've already received almost 2,000 ballots. So people really are voting, but your last time to vote is midnight on Thursday. In addition, the National Black Book Festival for this year, our registrations are very strong this year, and our early bird period ended yesterday. So now we're in standard registration. We are at 66% sold, and we expect to sell out by the end of May. So if you'd like to participate, please don't procrastinate. That rhymes, but we do expect to sell out. And once we sell out, we're not going to have a waiting list because the drop-off is already built in to our registration numbers. So we do expect to sell out. And the website shows the sell-through percentage. So you can go on the website and see that space is still left or when space is sold out. So don't procrastinate if you want to participate this year. Our Black Authors Matter TV Awards program is May 13th. And next Tuesday, we'll announce the finalists in those 15 categories. So based on your votes. So we're going to bring on our first guest. And she does a lot in the literary writing space. And just reading her bio, she is very active in academia as far as teaching writing. It looks like training other people to write. And so she has a book that's been out for a while, but it's really a very interesting title and topic. And it's called No Heaven for Good Boys. And our guest is Keisha Bush. Welcome to Black Authors Matter TV.
Thank you so much for having me, Gwen. This is really exciting. I love talking about books and writing. And I see myself as part of a larger legacy of writers, and especially Black writers and Black female writers, but just Black people. You know, it's kind of radical that, what was it, like maybe 150, almost 140, 50 years ago, we weren't allowed to read or write. And now look at us, you know?
Doing lots of writing. Now, are you able to turn the volume up on your device? Because
Yeah,
I heard you, but it seemed like the volume is a little bit low. And I want
yeah,
to make sure our audience can hear you. So are you able to turn up the volume a little bit?
I did. Is this a little better?
Yes, that is
Okay,
better.
cool.
So your book, No Heaven for Good Boys, when I saw the title, I was intrigued by it just because it seems like it may be based on a parable or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
But the setting is in Senegal, and I wanted to find out, do you have roots in Senegal?
So, what is so interesting? Okay. So, when Bush was elected the second time, so this was
Okay.
like 2000.
So he was originally in 2000, so that would be 2004.
Okay, there we go.
Hmm.
Help me with the timeline. So, when he when he got reelected, I remember the sort of collective grief that people were feeling. And I was living in Brooklyn at the time in New York City, and it was palpable. Like everybody was sad. And I was also like deeply, deeply saddened. And it was like people on the bus, there was just like no energy. And you knew it was because of like the election results. And so I literally left later that month and moved to West Africa. Um, and I had been sort of planning this for a while, but I was interested. I was born in Boston, and at that time I had only spent maybe 3 years in New York. In total, who knew it would turn into 20? Um, but I just needed to get off of the continent. I needed a break. So
Okay.
Keisha went back to Africa, right? My first
Okay.
time, so afraid. But long story short, I stayed in first the Gambia and then Senegal, and it was for a total of 4 years. And when I returned back to the US, it was like a year or two before the pandemic. My mom did her DNA swab. So I understand 23andMe is going through
I was
mad
getting ready.
issues.
I was getting
Exactly,
ready.
exactly.
I was gonna say, was it on 23 and Me?
Exactly. Like delete it now. But
Because I
you
think
know,
they're gonna be selling some of that to try to
exactly.
recoup their losses or whatever. But
Mm-hmm.
go ahead and continue.
But when my mom did do it, what we came to learn, and I like to brag, is like we are mad African. We have so many different African roots. Like I claim the whole continent as my motherland, which we all should. Okay. Like Africa is like the beginning for humanity, to be honest.
Yes.
Um, but my mom is Nigerian, Senegalese, Ghana, Leone, Congolese, and Angolan, and some North African, possibly, and definitely East African. But when I was in Senegal, we didn't know this yet, but we had the narrative. So in my family, I grew up in a house in Boston with myself, my mother, my grandmother, and my great grandmother. Great Gram was
Mm.
born like 1892, 1893, and her mom was a slave in Brazil on the sugarcane plantations. And she
Oh.
just got to a point where she was like, the slave thing is not working for me, and deuces. And she ran away and escaped. And she met this British Irish pirate, got on his boat, and I wonder like what sort of rituals and sort of protective work she was doing at that time, because they sail up to Honduras, where a lot of pirates were retiring on the island of Raton, which is why it's Anglophone, even though it's in a Latin American country in Central America. And our family moved to the US in the 60s on my mom's side. And then my mom and my dad got married like in the 70s. And my dad and his family are from North Carolina, like the roots trace back there.
Okay.
And so when I went to West Africa, when I went to Senegal and the Gambia, like it wasn't a process of like, oh, I'm returning to Africa. I was like, I hope I blend in, which I did not. We don't.
Hmm.
Um,
I've heard
and
that. I haven't been yet, but I've
yeah,
heard that.
they could tell. American
Hmm.
sister.
Yeah.
I remember that so clearly. And I was like, yo, we're cool. Shh. Because when everybody swarms and they're all trying to sell you, like, the goods that they're selling. And I'm like, don't do that to me. But like, I don't know, it was just such a fulfilling and expansive time for me. And I returned to the US different. Um, I wasn't a writer or even thinking about ever becoming a writer. I didn't think I was a good writer back then. And people would tell me, "Oh, Keisha, your emails, they bring me right there. I think I'm there. You should be a writer." And I was like, no. But when I returned to the US in 2008, I noticed how like I wouldn't move over for people on the street if I had the right of way. And I ended up in a conversation with a Central Park, and somehow we got on the topic, and she had just recently sort of understood at that time how much and how where she and all of us are often expected to move over on a sidewalk when a white person or a group of white people are walking towards us. And I remember how like I was like, please. I just came from a space where everybody was black, and the way I saw Senegalese people move through the city was so different. They weren't looking over their shoulders. If we saw police, we didn't look twice because like people are just not harassed like that. Not even in Gambia, where sometimes you would I didn't see this as much in Senegal, but Gambia back then, 2004, end of 2004, you could like you see cars driving and then there's like a police stop. They're not stopping you for your race. They're stopping you for a bribe. And like everybody's subjected to that. That's democratic. And I remember just like noticing these things like, oh my gosh, that's everybody. So that's a different kind of situation versus looking over our shoulders and being able to walk with your head held like as high as you can get it and nobody's even blinking twice at you. I was like, oh my gosh, every black person needs to come here, and like see it. And Senegal has such an entrepreneurial spirit to it. So yeah.
Now, I live in Houston.
Mm-hmm.
We walk in our neighborhood, but we don't, it's not a
Yeah.
walking city because it's too big and
Yeah.
it's too hot.
Yes.
So we don't, there's a little bit of walking downtown, but um that's not something that we really encounter because it's not like New York or DC or
Yeah.
Boston where
Yeah.
people are throngs of people walking on the streets.
Exactly.
We're in our cars.
Yeah. Like
So yeah.
chilling.
And everybody's rude. Well, the
Yeah.
newcomers are rude. I call them newcomers. We've had a lot of people move to Houston Metro in the last
Yeah.
5 years or so. I mean, just
Yeah.
tens of thousands, and they can't drive. So anyway, that's
They
another
probably are from
topic.
Boston too. We
But
call
they go
drivers some
well. We
assholes.
see license plates from all 50 states. There are people from everywhere.
I love that.
So, but I wanted to ask about
Mhm.
Senegal and what did when you went there,
Yeah.
you said you weren't a writer. So
Yep.
what were you thinking you were going to do professionally when you left?
Um,
Like what was
yeah.
your undergraduate degree in, or
Yep.
what did you see yourself doing? And
Marketing.
and you must have had a major shift because you've done a lot of writing since then. So
Yes.
so
Yes.
what were you thinking you were going to be
I
doing as a
thought
profession?
I thought so my initial goal, so we everybody knows about the YMCA. There are YMCAs all through the US, but there are YMCAs all through the world. And in New York, at least, I had found out through some friends of mine who had gone to Hong Kong through the YMCA to work with like young kids, almost like a summer camp. And they
Oh,
had met there and they were back in the States, and like all of them are doing like, I have some really cool friends, like just doing amazing things. And so I looked into it, and the International YMCA, there's one in New York City. I went on the website, looked through it, and it turns out it's all, I wouldn't call it Peace Corps, but it's for international volunteerism. And I
Okay.
remember at the time, I had wanted to go to Ireland. There was one in Ireland, but I decided to just like focus on the continent, Mother Africa. And they had a program in the Gambia, they had a program in Cameroon and a couple of other places. Ghana was the other place. So I technically, uh, they didn't, they weren't so great. They weren't so like forward about me, like, oh, go to a country you don't know the language. So I looked at Anglophone countries, which was the Gambia and Ghana. So I was supposed to spend 3 months in the Gambia, 3 months in Ghana, and I end up spending like 2 months in the Gambia because I went to Senegal. And Gambia is in Senegal. So weird with the colonial borders and all of that. They're all the same people, but they have different names now because the Gambia was colonized by the British and then Senegal is the French. So let's move past that. Um, so I ended up going to Senegal and not moving to Ghana, and then just letting my airline ticket expire. I started dating. My boyfriend was fine. And I was like, I'm not ready to go back to the US. I got a lot going on here. And so I was working with the YMCA, sort of like in a voluntary role. And I was supposed to put together PSAs, like public service announcements, just sort of, they wanted me to do something I didn't want to do. And this was in the Gambia. They wanted me to like teach typing classes and computer classes. And I'm like, yeah, I could do that, but that's not what I came here to do. And so since it's misaligned, I'm leaving because Dakar, which is the capital city of Senegal, is popping off. Like I mean, just beautiful, is full of life. Again, that entrepreneurial spirit is there. And so I reached out to the head of the YMCA in Senegal, in Dakar, and he let me move from the YMCA in Gambia to Dakar. And then I called up a friend of mine who's Senegalese he's in New York. And I was like, hey, I need a place to stay. Do you have family there? He's like, let me talk to my mom. So then I ended up staying with his family, and his sister had just come back from New York. And since they had been in school here in the US since middle school, she spoke like fluent English. She spoke New York English. So I had a translator as I tried around, took a French class. A Senegalese man connected me. He was like, oh my God, you need to meet my friend or my colleague, Dominique. And I was like, oh, you want me to meet a white French man? Okay. And then he sets us up to meet, and I see a Black woman from Atlanta. Like, of course. And so I got connected to like the Black American expat community. And I can't sit still for too long. So I ended up English as a second language. There is a lot of universities have other sites in different countries. So Suffolk University here in Boston has a campus in Dakar, and they have a campus in Spain. And like NYU, New York University, has campuses in New School to Paris, Japan. So a lot of the schools have been doing that, I would say, in the last 20 years. So like I found work, and then I was just living my best life, I'll be honest.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Um, did you expect to stay as long as you did?
No, I didn't. But I'm glad that I created the obstacle that caused me to stay, which is letting airline ticket expire. So then I couldn't come home and having to find a way to land on my feet, if that makes sense.
Mhm.
Because a traumatic experience back here in the US that pretty much triggered, along with the Bush reelection, find like who I was, that person who has that drive. And I was struggling. I was afraid of making decisions.
Now, does that YMCA program still exist?
It actually might. Let me Google it. I
Because
love
that would be some useful information for people,
yes.
people who might want to do some study abroad or just travel,
Yes.
where it's organized travel,
Yep.
where they can connect with a U.S. based entity, just because
Yep.
familiarity with U.S. systems and customs and that kind of thing, even though
Yep.
you're in another country. So I
Yep.
didn't I didn't know the YMCA had that. I know there's some others like study abroad programs, and there used to,
Mhm.
a friend of mine was in her first job out of college was it Youth for Understanding or something like that. Anyway,
Mm.
I don't even know if they still exist, but it was a study abroad. Well, it brought students to the United States from other countries.
Okay.
It was one of
Okay.
those where the
Yep.
students could come here and live with a family
Okay.
for X number of months or whatever.
Yeah. The YMCA, one little detail that I forgot actually to add was once I like applied, went through the process, and the YMCA and the Gambia, like I was accepted, right? Like you go through the process to get accepted. The YMCA, I feel like I might be quoting this wrong, but I really feel like it was a YMCA in North Carolina or in the Carolinas or Alabama, one of the two. I'll have to check emails, but they put money together for me to buy my ticket to
Oh,
be able to
okay.
fly over, so
Okay.
there's definitely support for this. So just look up like, why
Well, I didn't
um
want to do it now just because we
I
have a limited
know.
amount of time and we want to talk about your book.
Yes,
So, we only have about 7 minutes left. So we
I
want to talk
know.
about your book,
Yep.
No Heaven for Good Boys. And do you have a copy of it handy?
I do. Where is it?
I wanted to put
Oh, there we
the
go.
cover on the screen, and you can tell the audience what your book
Hello.
is about. I know it's the setting is in Senegal, and I
Yes.
saw that, and I said, that's a title, just the
Yeah.
words that whoever created the title put together to make a title.
Yes.
It sounds like a parable,
So,
or
No Heaven for Good Boys, my elevator pitch is basically it's a modern day retelling of Oliver Twist. But my Oliver is Black, Muslim, and lives in Africa because he's African, he's Senegalese.
okay,
And when I started writing it, I didn't have that in mind. It was in a class, a workshop, a writing workshop that a classmate was like, "This is like a modern retelling of Oliver Twist." And I'm like, "Yes, that's exactly what it is." Thank you for that, man. Your
okay,
classmates,
and
be
that
brilliant
ended up being your
sometimes.
tagline, or
Yeah.
one of them. Mhm.
And so the title is literally is a it's a title of irony.
Mm.
So because my Senegal is like 96, maybe 97% Muslim, although there's a very strong Christian community there. And what I love about Senegal is you get all the holidays. You get the Muslim holidays and the Christian holidays. I am like, sign me up. We get the Buddhist and the Jewish holidays too. Like, let this be everybody's land. I am for it. Um, and so within Islam, and I practiced Islam as a kid when my mom remarried her second husband, and or when she married her second husband. And so in being in moving from Christianity to Islam, one of the things that when I was 12 years old was this understanding that like when men die and they were a good person, they go to paradise where they get 72 virgins. And I remember being 12 and being like, okay, I'm a virgin and I'm not going to be one of 72 for some dude. for some man, and I didn't understand it. My context was through the understanding of a 12-year-old. But it actually triggered something for me when we think about like Christianity and Islam, and this idea that we're told to suffer and not fight for equity because we will be redeemed in the afterlife. And there is sort of a struggle with that, right? Especially as Black people, as marginalized people in a country that has always been like, oh, you want things too fast. You want equity too fast. You want justice too quickly. You just have to sit and wait. And so for these young kids who are real children, actually, they're called the Taliban, and they're often given to a religious leader who is running a school, and young children, they can memorize the Quran between like 3 and 5 years. But instead of truly teaching these children, it's become a custom to literally put on the garb of a Marabu, like a man of God, dark sunglasses, and collect children and then force them to beg. So it's a modern day slavery situation, and the estimates are that there are 50 to 100,000 boys who are subjected to this. They claim between the ages of 5 and 15, but I babies as young as 3. And it
Oh,
just stuck with me when I moved back to the US, and the boys stuck with me. I was their banana girl. So they would see me and they'd be like, ah, shh, they'll talk to each other real quick. And they're like, ah, that's her. Banana, banana, banana. And everybody's like, what in the world is going on? But it was because I could afford at the time bananas for like $2, because I was on a budget also. Um, but yeah, and so like this book, No Heaven for Good Boys, it's a play on, here are children are innocent, even when they're acting up.
yes,
And
yes.
so they're being told, be a good boy, and yet their daily life is suffering. And they have parents, they're not orphans. Oftentimes, the families are sort of not really coerced, but pressured to give their children away. And so, when Senegalese people in the south of Senegal started to learn that their children were being abused, and this is while I was still in Senegal, these teachers, these men, started crossing the border into Mali and Burkina Faso. And, and then that's when it became a problem, sort of internationally, because if you bring children across a border, now that's trafficking. But
Mhm.
because it was in country, it wasn't considered so.
Oh,
But
okay.
it's still modern day slavery. So um I mean, it took 10 years, actually 11 years from the start of the first draft. I rewrote it because I didn't know what I was doing the first time. I, it's so interesting because like as a as a culture, we like things really fast, and we don't realize sometimes it can take to really like hone in on your skill and get it to a point. And I was determined. um only only for the boys. I want a Taliban boy who was a Taliban at some point, that when he grows up, whether he's reading a French version of it or the English version, to realize that someone loved him, that he was loved, and that there is a space in this world for his story.
Hmm. Well, Keisha, we're at the end of our time.
Yeah.
It's a fascinating story. And I hope people get the book and learn more about this whole aspect of Senegalese culture.
Yeah.
And it doesn't sound like it's even limited necessarily to Senegal. So show your book cover again. No Heaven for Good Boys. And it's
Exactly.
available wherever books are sold.
Yeah.
And congratulations on that and all your fellowships. I didn't get a chance to talk
Yeah.
about that, but go online and I think your website is yourname.com.
It
Yes,
is KeishaBush.com.
KeishaBush.com.
Yep.
And you can learn more about all the different writing things that she's doing. You're doing a
Yeah.
bunch of stuff for somebody who didn't plan to be a writer.
Yeah. Exactly. Yes.
So the
Like
opportunity's there.
we have super skills and our experience brings so much. Never think that you can't do something. At least try. But you try, you really need to give it your best shot. And it took me 10
Mhm.
years to give this my best shot. And it was worth it.
Well, I
So
agree with you because I've had many people come on the show and say they took 20 years, some of them
yep,
20 years to write a book. So
yep,
I know what
yep,
that means. And I'm a writer myself, so
yep.
I won't go into that because that would be another topic. But anyway, thank you so
Yeah.
much, Keisha, for
Thank
being a guest
you.
on Black Authors Matter TV. And
Absolutely.
um keep traveling. It sounds like you've just,
Mm,
you know,
yep.
done
I'm
so
about
much.
I'm about to bust out of here again. I'm heading to the UK maybe or Nairobi. But one last thing, go to my website if you want to reach out to me directly. Um, you know that little like for more information or me,
Or
you
the,
can literally email me through that and it'll come to my email. So
okay.
folks, yeah. All right.
All right.
Thank
Well,
you so
thanks
much,
again for being
Gwen.
a guest
All
and
right.
all the best to you.
All right. Bye.
Okay.
Bye.
Good night. That was an interesting story about all her travels and how she ended up in all those different African countries. It was amazing. So, our next guest is no stranger to Black Authors Matter TV. We generally have her on when she has a new book release, and not every time because she's sometimes releasing two books a year. So, but Vanessa, welcome back to Black Authors Matter TV, and she is on for her book release for her new book, A Wager at Midnight, and it is book 2 in a 2-part series.
Yes, ma'am.
Now, is it 2 parts total, or is it book 2 and there are more books to come?
There's 3 in the series. So
Okay,
we start with A Gamble at Sunset. The
right.
new one is A Wager at Midnight, and the book which will be out next year is A Deal at Dawn.
Okay, so you got Sunset, Midnight, and Dawn. That was the connecting thread for the
Yes.
series. You know, it's interesting how people come up with threads, connecting threads
Yes.
for
Yes.
books.
Yes.
And they're all clever, you know. It's a clever twist.
We
Now did
tried,
you
but this one should have been called A Wager at 10 p.m. because I did a midnight release. That was hard.
so so did you do a live event for your midnight release?
Yes,
Did a
so
live
we
virtual event?
no a live event.
Oh, you
So
did a live in-person event.
yeah, I cooked because if I'm gonna have you out at midnight, I gotta feed you. So we met. Readers came to the Bookworm in Powder Springs, Georgia. It's a beautiful bookstore. Julia is the owner, and They decorated the entire spot with and we had crafts and we did everything. Everybody joined at 10:30 p.m. and everybody stayed until like 12:30 a.m. And so we rang in the book at midnight. It was a lot of fun.
Oh, okay. That's now this was on release day,
On release,
which was
yeah,
last Tuesday, I believe,
last
wasn't it?
Tuesday. Yes,
Okay.
last Tuesday.
Wow. So that's I don't know if I've heard about. I'm not saying it hasn't been done. I hear all about different book release techniques and events and things people have. I don't think I've heard about that one. So did you do it at midnight because of the title of the book?
Yes. Yeah,
Okay.
that's why I should have been at 10 p.m. A Wager at 10
Okay.
p.m. would have been a much better title.
No, but I think that's great. If you were able to get some people to stay up to do that.
Yes. Yeah. And
But in Powder Springs, Georgia, you said, because that's right outside of Atlanta. My
Mhm.
niece used to live in Powder Springs. So yeah, she moved to she's in Charlotte now.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
but she was there for a while. And so tell us about the series,
Okay.
and is it one continuing character? Is it
So
what is it? What is the common thread that connects them all, other than the time of day or a state of
yeah.
I guess weather or existence or time, state of time, the
So
sunset, the midnight, and the dawn.
y-
So
yeah, so the whole series is about the Wilcox sisters. So in book one, you meet Georgina Wilcox. In book two, it is Scarlett Wilcox. In book three is Lady Hampton, the eldest sister, formerly Catherine Wilcox. She's Catherine Wilcox Palmer. She's a widow. And so the whole bet is in the very first book. Um, Lady Hampton, when she was younger, was involved with the Duke of Torrance. Let's put that way. They were involved, is what you know. And she can't stand him right now. The Duke of Torrance is black, he is Russian, and he's also English. So he's biracial. And this follows the true history of Ganabal, who was adopted by Tsar Peter. And he was an enslaved young man who's brilliant. The Tsar adopts him as his godson, and so starts the Ganabal line. And Queen Elizabeth's uncle is actually related to this line. So when I found all that, I was like, we got to put some connection into the book.
now where do you always write about some real obscure people?
Yes,
Real. I don't mean real obscure. I mean real obscure people.
well, they're
So where do
obscure
you
for a
find these
reason, though,
obscure
right?
people?
Yeah. See,
How do you
this
where do you find them?
the some things come to you. So when I'm looking for something, like I'll be looking for something specific, and all of a sudden I'll see a an advertisement in an old newspaper clipping, or I'll run into a scientific paper, or I'll run into the court proceedings of a famous case. And so I'm a firm believer, when you find some goodies, you screenshot it, you download it, you will never find it again when you're looking for it. And so I have these files where I
Well,
just
that is
keep.
true.
Woo! There are whole storylines I could have done, but I was so busy, I can't find it anymore. And there's stories that are just, yeah, you can't find it. So my whole thing now is, if you see it, you copy it and just store it away. And someday you'll be able to use. So I go in this little file, a folder, and I look at pictures and I look at little snippets of history, and I'm like, what would be a good story that's going to make people laugh, learn something, get a deeper understanding of our whole story? Because our whole story is not just enslavement. There are other
Definitely not.
aspects
Mhm.
of our history. When they say we were kings and queens, we literally were kings and queens. That's not a fairy tale. And then you've got like the kingdoms and queendoms in Haiti during the time of the Regency. So it's like there's so much history we don't know. And if I can just do a little bit to enlighten some people, I'm going to do it. So we have the Duke of Torrance. His loser best friend who married Catherine is dying in the first book, and he's got to confess, because when you die and you got to confess everything. So the Duke comes, he doesn't want to come, and he hears that this man has lied to the woman he loves, Catherine, the oldest sister, and he figures out why the oldest sister hates him. And so he really just wants to kill Tavis, even though Tavis got like 5 more minutes to live. He really want to kill him there, but that would be bad. Not hero-like at all. But he decides to stay in London instead of going back to St. Petersburg, Russia, and he's going to fix everything that Tavis messed up. And his hopes is that the older sister will see that he is really a good guy and that she will love him again. But she can't stand him and she wants him gone. And after a year of trying to get rid of him, he's sticking around. They end up making a bet, and he says, "You know what? You've been so busy trying to run your father's coal business." And the coal business, by the way, is modeled after Caesar Picton, who was a wealthy black man during the Regency who figured out that rich people don't want to touch coal. And so he hand delivered coal to all of the rich residences in Mayfair, made a lot of money, built a beautiful house on the Thames. And so that family is modeled after Wilcox, because Caesar Picton's daughters married very well. So um, the Duke decides to stick around. He makes a bet with Catherine that he now knows those sisters better, her two younger sisters of marriageable age, better than she does. He can find them great matches. And if he does, before she can, then she has to marry him. And she's like, "Oh, no, 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 I'm not getting married again. I'll rather be your mistress for 6 months." And he thinks about it, and he's like, "That'll work." And so that's the bet going on in the background. And they're tied in the first book. So in the first book, because they disqualified somebody who ends up the one that she's with, so he didn't. So this union doesn't count. So whoever can match Scarlett in this book is going to be the winner. Now, Scarlett's got her own determination, because she's literally, at the end of that book, she was blackmailing the Duke because she discovers that he's got the blood disease, and that he's been trying to keep it a secret, because Scarlett's a very smart young woman. She sees what people think are wine bottles are actually pain medicines that he's got lying around, because the blood disease is sickle cell anemia. Sickle cell anemia is an ancient disease. Biracial people can get it. Black folks and some white folks can get sickle cell anemia. But it's an ancient disease, and during that time frame, you pretty much tried. It's just like almost what they do today. It's levels of pain management, different types of pain sources, and whatnot. So he is enabling Scarlett to continue with the medicine, and Scarlett will go to any length. She even dresses up like a man so that she can get into the medical lectures, because during this time frame, women are not allowed to do medicine at all. It is a male-dominated field. And Scarlett doesn't want any part of that, and she's not going to be stopped. She knows that her people need medicine, that they need more access to care. She's going to do what she's going to do. And Stephen, our hero, who's a Trinidadian physician, he's an immigrant to London. He's the family physician for the Wilcox. He's also the physician for the Duke of Torrance. Sees her about to be exposed and steps up and says, "This is my cousin." So he covers for her, and so she can under her guise. But of course, that means they have to go to a brothel together with the rest of the guys.
Now, what's the time frame in the books?
These are 1816, 1817.
Okay, all right. And where does it take place?
In London, primarily London.
In London, because one of your other books wasn't it based in London as well?
A lot of the romances are based in London. Some of them are based in Haiti. Some are based in Demerara, which is present-day Guyana. Yeah, I hop around the Caribbean. Montserrat. I love the Caribbean.
Now, have you spent time in London?
I have spent time in London, yes.
Okay, so when you do you research in London? When you're in London, do you actually go conduct research? And when you do you go to the library? Where does one go in London if they want to research a book?
Yeah, London is literally a history book as soon as you walk in it. So there's history on the streets. So often I will find addresses of places or parks that were very important during the Regency, and I'll go and visit them. So different streets, Parliament, literally going, because the beauty of it, like, America's really a young country.
Yeah, I was going to say that. It's compared to England. I don't know exactly how old England is. I do know that the British family, the royal family, has been around for 1,000 years. So that's a long time for one family to rule. And I don't think anywhere else on the planet that's the case. I believe that
most have had some sort of coup. They've been able to hang on. they've been able to hang on.
Yes,
But
but
yeah, so it's just literally, I do, the best way if you're going to do research, do a lot of pre-work to know where you're going to go, to know the places that
okay,
you want to visit. And because sometimes the time frame, like one time I really wanted to go to the Old Bailey's courtroom. That's the historic courtroom where, famous lawyers have walked, and there's cases during the Regency time frame that I'd love to play in and bring back. But you have to, I want to go in there. Pictures aren't enough. I want to, feel being in there and listening to how voices echo, because a lot of that is original architecture. The structures are authentic. So, and even when they do repairs, they try and keep the same materials because these are ancient. I mean, they're all like monuments, and you go in
right.
there. And if I can bring that feeling to one of my books, I think it deepens the enjoyment if you feel like you're actually there. So I try to be as authentic as possible.
Okay, we have a couple of comments. And Angela Anderson said, it's a great series, and that A Gamble at Sunset set the stage.
Yes, yes, yeah. So I
So,
mean, this is one of those, you can read the books out of order, but you get more of the jokes and you see the progress of the lies being and the secrets being exposed if you read A Gamble at Sunset first and then A Wager at Midnight.
yeah, a series, if I'm going to read a series, I want to start at book one. Now, sometimes I'll read a book and not realize it's part of a series, and then then I'll go back, especially if it's a book that could be a standalone.
Mhm.
But if it's part of a series, I would prefer to start with book one because that gives you the backstory,
Exactly.
and
Exactly.
you really can't. It gives you the impetus for some of the actions that take place in the future books.
Exactly.
Why
Exactly.
people did what they did, or why they went where they went, or somebody in the previous book died and it was impactful, but you didn't know it if you didn't read the first book or the previous.
Exactly. Exactly.
So, um, now I have a question about the courts in London.
Mhm.
Do they? Because I've seen some more depicted on film, and I don't know if it's still the case. Did those judges, the people, they call them barristers, I think,
Mhm.
um, do
Yep.
they still wear those wigs, those white wigs?
The horsehair wigs, I
The
think so. They
ones
think that,
like the
yeah,
one, the
the
white
horsehair
ones.
wigs, but they may have gotten rid of the horsehair wigs, but they wear the white cuff
Okay,
collar. They wear the
okay,
long robes. They sit at the same or very similar half moon circled right. So the judge is like behind, and then they sit and they're looking out at you, and the jury men are over here, in like regular chairs, kind of sitting there, and then there's a witness box. So it's like a lot of that is still in play. And the formalities of the bailiff bringing out the person in hat, and they may not use the chains like they did before, but it's still very authentic. So depending upon the time frame that you're watching, if it's a period piece, they're gonna get a. You definitely have it. I just don't. I know because now we have women barristers, whether they force everyone to wear those the curly wigs. I don't know, the horsehair wigs. I'm not sure about that part today, but in the
mhm,
past, yes.
okay. Now the gamble at sunset.
Hmm.
Did you, when you wrote that, did you know you were going to be doing three books?
Yes, yes.
Okay, you did.
Kensington bought a 3-book series.
Oh, okay, okay. So when you were deciding how to create the three books,
Mhm.
it's three sisters, so that's basically what you used
Yes.
as a feature for each one.
Yes, 3/4 sisters, but
Okay.
one alleged sister. Y'all understand what I'm saying? One alleged sister is really young. She could be somebody's daughter.
Okay. Okay.
But yeah, so oftentimes, especially in romance, they want a 2 or 3 book series. So it's better to think about the world that you're building before you write the first book, because I like to, if these characters are like anybody, they're changing. If something happens in the book and they change, or they learn something, and that needs to carry through. I also love to put mirrors, so to speak, in a book. So some characters mirror each other; they're on the opposite sides of the mirror, so to speak. So if somebody is against sort of this, and they're against this, and all of a sudden something happens, and they go onto the other side of the mirror, and they see why this person was so against whatever it was, and now they have empathy, because I think the world lacks empathy, and I want you to gain from these various people, these very different, very strong characters. I want you to gain the empathy that I think the world lacks a little bit, when you're reading these books. But you got to go in with the whole. To me, you got to know the whole world. One time, I was writing for Entangled, and they wanted a fourth book, and I was like, there was only three women. What do you mean a fourth book? And I had a throwaway line in one of the books about one of the characters having a sister. So that became the fourth book.
Okay.
But that is just pure happenstance. God loves me. And because normally I'm like, I planned this out. What do you mean I need a fourth book? It was a 3-book series. So
Now, how do you go from writing those epic masterpiece books about real people to writing romance? It
okay.
seems like it's one side of the brain versus the other side of the brain.
Well,
How-
they're all different types of sagas, right? So for romance, it's I've collected bits and pieces of history, but I don't have somebody's whole story, right? So I have Caesar Picton's story, but I don't know who his daughters were. I don't know who they actually married. I don't know how, I can kind of, from the history, I can figure out how long he ran the business, but I don't know what happened to the business after, who did he pass? So there's like so many holes in his story. It's hard to do it as a historical fiction, but I can model them in this other story I'm writing. So that's a lot of the modeling. For the historical fiction, usually I do so much research, like cradle to grave it. I know what this person did, every aspect of their lives. And if there is a gap, I have enough information I can surmise what, to fill in the missing pieces. At the same time, I've done enough research so that I get a feeling of who they are. I don't want to write about somebody and mischaracterize them. I want to do honor to these people because, like you said, these are folks that people don't know.
Right.
And this may be their first introduction to this history. So I'm meticulous in figuring out who they are, who they interacted with, who they loved, if they had children, all the different connections, and then the time that they're in. What political struggles are going on? Because usually these people who do great things are battling not just themselves or not just their community. They're usually battling a political system that is trying to take away their rights or to force them in some little tiny box. And they somehow are broken out of this. So you got to be faithful to all of those different aspects. You got to do a lot of research. So that's why you get the hundreds and
The
hundreds of
500 page
versions
tome, the
of books.
500-page tome.
There you go. You get that because I'm doing.
And your meticulousness, I think this is the word, shows,
Thank you.
because the attention to detail is amazing in those books that are really sagas. They're really biographies, but they're historical fiction.
Mhm.
They're fictionalized accounts, but they really. Now, for those who don't know you, and this is maybe their first time seeing you, they may not know that your profession, I believe, is an engineer. That's what you were trained as.
Mhm. Yes.
And tell us a little bit about how you went from that to writing novels.
Yes. So as a young person back in high school, I was gifted in writing. So I'm winning writing competitions, and I'm also gifted in math. I'm on the math team. In science club, I'm getting the gold medallions and big dirt prizes. And my mother literally sits me down one day and she was like, baby, you have to pay your bills. This writing thing is nice, but engineering will, and she's absolutely right. Engineering pays all the bills. It's very safe profession. And I worked for NASA. I've worked for Sun Microsystems. I've worked for Hewlett Packard. Did some telecom startups, and yes, it's exciting. But I do remember I had a boss who looked at a report that I wrote on diecast manufacturing, and they were like, Vanessa, this is too interesting. You need to tone it down. We don't need all this for what the lineman thought and all these different things. We don't need to tone it down. When you have a gift, you've got to do something with it. Otherwise, it'll come out or it'll be taken away. So you've got to feed your gift. You've got to do your gift. And so I literally had to sit that point in my life. I had to sit still for 6 months, and I wrote one of the first versions of Madeline's Protector, and it was cathartic and it was fun and being able to build these worlds. So the rest is history.
Oh, now do you still do your engineering work?
Not as much, still random consulting, but this is primarily 100%, writing because, it's fun. And as you said earlier, I got a lot of books coming out. So I've got some
You
things
do.
in
I mean,
contracts.
I'm amazed at how I think in the 5 years or so that you've been on, well, the show will be 5 years old in July. And you've been on every year with a new book, and we have not covered all of your books that you've released in that time period.
Yep.
So,
Yep.
so you are doing a lot of writing, and in the meantime, you've written, I think, 3 books that are at least 400 pages. Is that right? I mean, I'm
Yeah.
going from memory, but
You are
yeah, and
absolutely right because I
that's a
think
lot of writing.
yeah, I think you were with me with Island Queen,
Yes,
and then
yes,
we've had Island Queen and Sister Mother Warrior
yes.
and Queen of Exiles. So
Yeah, the
those are
last
3
time you were
historical
on was for
fictions.
Queen of Exiles.
Yeah, so
Yeah, we
3
didn't have you
historical
on with
fictions.
the Gambit book. We didn't have the Gamble at Sunset
Yes, or
because I think it came.
the Lady Worthing Mysteries because that's the other genres, right? So we've had the
Yeah,
Lady
you were
Worthing.
on for something else too, I think.
Could be a dupe to
But
Lady and
but
Baby. You never know. It's all.
you've been doing a lot of things. So I'm just amazed at how you're able to produce so many words. I mean, it's a lot of words. And I say that as a fellow writer. Um, my gift is more uh to be generally succinct, but I don't know if I could write like how many words is 400 to 500 pages? You're looking at what,
Maybe
125,000?
100, maybe 100,000 to 120,000 word story.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know if I have that many words on any topic. And my 2 novels, they're like 70. And that was like stretching for me. Because I generally do shorter pieces on research topics,
Hmm.
topics of interest to me. Or like with my children's books, children's books are like 1,000 words. So that's a quick write. It's the illustrations is what take the
Takes a
time.
minute. Takes some
Mhm.
time. Yeah. I
Yes. No,
I I'm pretty prolific.
you
I
are.
write every day. So I'm
Okay.
training myself like it's a muscle.
Okay.
And when you write every day, and it could be just as little as 100 words a day,
Mhm.
but that makes it something you have to do, something you cannot not do. And so you get all your senses, everything engaged so that I have, deadlines are real. I signed contract. This book is
Right.
due
Right.
at a certain time frame. Uh,
Right.
by
And you
writing
don't
every
want to
day.
try to do it all. You can't, something like that where you need that many words, you can't like put it off and try to cram it all in 2 weeks. It's not, it doesn't work like that.
No, no,
It,
you Cramming is hard because, like,
Yeah.
I like to run themes through the book, so I like to tie things together. And if
Mhm.
you cram, you may not necessarily get all the themes, or do as much as you would want to do with the book. Especially in the historical fiction, there's so many things I want to make sure that are said. In addition to honoring these people's lives, it may be a way of showing people how to resist under difficult circumstances, showing people how to be resilient or how to navigate a world that may not necessarily want you to succeed. A lot of these women rose up from nothing, and were at the top of the world or top of their world, at certain spaces in time. Stories we need to hear so we can be encouraged, so that no matter what happens, we know we can survive. But to give them justice, you've got to thread that through the story, so that
Mhm.
so that what a reader gets, that's the message, and or one of the messages of the thing. So I would rather write a crappy first draft and get it done, and then go back and edit that guy and smooth it out and work it and spend my time in editing than I
Okay.
am in the official first draft. And I think many writers get stuck finishing that first draft because they're trying to
Okay.
make it perfect. And I'm like, no, don't, just get to
Just
the end.
get it out there.
Get it to
Get
the
it.
end and
Okay.
then edit it into perfection, because you can't
Okay.
edit a blank sheet of paper.
Well, that's good advice. And we're at the end of our time. So thank you so much, Vanessa. Congratulations. Show the book cover of both of them, part 1 and 2. And they're available wherever books are sold. Thank,
Absolutely.
thank
And
you
my
so.
website, vanessariley.com. Remember
Yes,
to share
and
everything.
Stephanie Burnham, one of our viewers, put it in the chat because Rhonda's off tonight doing some training for work, so she wasn't able to be on the show tonight.
Tell her I said hello, because you
I
guys are
will do
always so cool.
so. Thank you so much. Good
Bye.
night. Okay, well, we tonight we have a mixture of returning guests and new guests. So our first guest was a new guest, has never been on the show, and our third guest that's coming up now is also a new guest that's never been on the show. He has a new book, and his name is Lee Hawkins. And we want to welcome Lee to Black Authors Matter TV.
Hello, it's good to see you.
Same here. And I
Yeah.
want you to know that you um, came across our radar because one of our company's, well, not one of our company's very best book customer. And we don't even retail books anymore except to specific people because we had a store at one time for 10 years. But anyway, she's been our customer for 22 years. And she listens to NPR and she hears about books. She listens to it every day. And she told us about your book, and then we did some research. And that was why we invited you to the show. That's how it came across our radar, because there are different ways to hear about books. And with so many books being released, a lot of times we get alerts and things like that. But your book sounded really interesting. And do you have a copy of your book with you? I am
Yes, ma'am. It's called I
nobody's
Am
slave.
Nobody's Slave, How Uncovering My Family's History Set Me Free. And
Oh,
please thank that young lady for recommending me to your show, because I strongly believe that Black authors matter. And this is the
yeah.
audience that I'm trying to get through. I've had a lot of mainstream recognition, but this book
Okay.
I wrote for our people. It's okay for people from outside our community to read our literature, but this was a book that I really wanted to write for the liberation, the internal liberation, mentally, spiritually, physically, liberation of modern Black Americans who descend from slavery.
Okay. And it just that she lives in New York and she's in her 80s. The lady that
Amen.
recommended. Yeah.
Okay. Well,
She buys books. It's amazing. And she gives them away to people. She just She loves books, mostly nonfiction. And really, the fiction that she likes is historical fiction, which is really like real life. But she does that. So tell us about. Is this your first book? Is this your
Yes,
debut book?
ma'am.
Well,
Yes.
congratulations on that. Now,
Thank you.
before you decided to do this book, what did you do every day? What was your profession, or what has been
Well,
your profession?
most recently, I was a reporter for the Wall Street Journal for
Oh,
19 years,
okay.
and covering business. I
Mhm.
covered a lot of different beats there. I did a lot of interviews on camera as well, but also covered General Motors. I covered during the pandemic the New York public schools for 2 years because at that point I was very interested in the long term effects of childhood trauma, adverse childhood experiences on Black and Brown children. And I wanted to see how that would manifest in the pandemic. And so I was blessed to be able to cover the New York public schools, which is only 15% white students. And it's the nation's largest school district. And so with over 1 million kids at the time. And so I covered that. And I also was a member of the team of Black reporters, mainly Black reporters, who came together at the Wall Street Journal to write a a series on the Tulsa massacre of 1921. And because I come to this experience through writing about intergenerational effects of slavery and Jim Crow on modern Black people, most of the work I do is through the lens of intergenerational. And so I did a story with my colleague called The Dreams of Jack and Daisy Scott. And that story showed how the Tulsa Massacre affected the family for 3 generations after, to give
Okay.
people a sense of how these atrocities that were committed against our people, despite the fact that we thrived, despite it, how we still carry some of the effects and how it affected our families and sometimes splintered our families, um, and that toll that took. And so for me, I've always been curious about the world, and it's rooted in being, I talk a lot about in the book about getting whoopings as a kid and how conflicted I was about that. And a lot of my whoopings came from being curious. I came from a family with a father who loved me dearly, uh, and he was from Greenville, Alabama. He
Okay.
lived, born in 1948, and he moved north when he was 12 because his mother tragically was died, and the decision was made that he would move north to live with a sister and a brother-in-law who had already moved there. But my point is that his mind was very locked in Alabama still. And a lot of the rules of the South were the rules of our home in Minnesota. And so the idea of a child being seen and not heard was prevalent in my family and prevalent in my church community and in my village, that there were just things that, children should stay out of adults' business. And for me, being a curious boy, and just having rational questions and logical questions about certain things. Well, why can't we talk about Alabama? What happened to your mom? Those kinds of questions were the things that got me in trouble. But the things that got me in trouble are the things that are allowing me to make good trouble now.
Okay. Well, that's a good way of putting it. Um, now my roots are in the South as well, and I'm
Where?
well, North Carolina. Both of my parents are from North Carolina.
Okay.
They're deceased now, but um, then we moved to Virginia when I was 8 because my father was a pastor. So we would move, he would get a pastor, a bigger church. He was in rural churches in North Carolina. Then when we moved to Virginia, that was where we stayed because he became a pastor of one of the largest Black churches in the area at the time. Um, so I do understand the mores of Southern living, and
And the
I'm in
beauty of it.
Texas now, but I'm not. Well, I actually was born in Texas, but I never lived here until I became an adult and then moved here. But I went to school in Washington. But I say that to say I understand what you're saying about when you use the word whooping. Some people don't realize it's not. People didn't say whipping.
I stay
They
whipping.
said whooping.
Right. When
They
we
didn't
should be
call it
saying,
a whipping. They call it a whooping.
right.
But it was discipline. And it
Well,
was common. Now I don't know what happened once you moved to Minnesota, but it was common. It was common, but it wasn't in my experience. And I was one of those curious kids too, or mischievous. I was curious and mischievous. But it wasn't overused. Now, in some families, I hear about like things people tell me that they got hit with all kinds of things. That wasn't the case in my growing up. It was used, but it wasn't overused.
well,
It
I'm
was
happy to hear that.
appropriately used, I would say.
Okay. Well,
But
I would encourage you to read I Am Nobody's Slave. And I hope that we can have a conversation about that later. And if you still feel that way, because what this book does is the reason I had to change from saying whooping to whipping was because I wanted to give the credit where it was due, to where it came from. Because I grew up a lot of times doing things and not really knowing where things came from and believing that certain things came from our heritage. And there were the things that we did before we were brought here and
still in
held in
captivity.
captivity. Certain things like a Black man having babies with multiple women and not taking care of the child. I believed that this was a phenomenon that came from out of the Black experience in the 80s, right? After all those periods of Black excellence. And then our families in the 70s and 80s started to fall apart and we started to see much more of that. I believe that things like eating chitlins and hog maws and all the things that I used to love, that I used to not want to have collard greens unless I had some pork in there. I thought that the chitlins and things that we used to eat on New Year's Eve, I thought that came from our heritage. I believe that the belt was something that had to be done to Black children because Black children could not be, we couldn't have any freedom because we could get killed by the police or we could get killed in the streets. But I didn't know where that came from. There were so many things that I didn't know. I didn't know why it was that every time I got an A on an English paper, I felt the need to stuff it away in my backpack because I didn't want the kids to see it because I thought that they would tell me that I was acting white. And when I went into my history, now you got to understand this took 10 years to do. I did an exhaustive, devastating amount of research, applying my skills as an investigative reporter to find out really how can something, this is a question that many of our white brothers and sisters love to ask. Well, how can something that happened 150 years ago affect a Black person today? Well, instead of giving lip service, I said, well, I'm going to go out and I'm going to find out. I'm going to trace my family history 400 years. And I'm going to find out what the truth is about all of these Black people who are walking around, who have become mayors of cities and CEOs of companies and entrepreneurs and UPS drivers and nurses and all of us who walk around with such pride and dignity like nothing ever happened to us, making it look so easy. And I wanted to show what generationally this slavery and Jim Crow did to my family and how it was that we're still standing and that we're still thriving and that we never found the language to talk about what we went through. And when I look at my father, when I look at my father, I loved him so much. And his sisters who lived in Alabama. and like I said, moved to Minnesota in tragic circumstances. When I look at them, I know that the reason they didn't talk about Alabama, I know now, because I got to go into my heritage and I got to go into the things that they all survived. And I saw that since 1837, I've had a family member murdered every generation, including my grandfather and both of my great grandfathers. What were they murdered over? Mainly success, land and livestock, just like the Tulsa Massacre, just like all of the things we've seen. And I also found out that the whipping culture, and I call it that, I need to use the right word because it was whipping, and it was used on my great great grandmother Charity Pugh, which I actually had no idea who she was. And then when I began to do this research, I realized that she was a woman that my granduncle used to tell us about, his grandmother. And I realized that we knew the last generation of people who were enslaved. And I pieced together her life. And I saw that she was brutally whipped. And she was also a victim of sexual assault, which is why 20% of my blood is DNA is from Wales. And over 90% of Black people in this country today have European blood, foundational Black Americans who descend from slavery. And so many of them have a lot more than me. How is it that,
to varying degrees. You're right. You're right about that. And I
right,
would say 90% of the people who have ancestry in America from the 1800s
right. And so
or before.
the toll that that took on our families and the different secrets and lies that were told out of the embarrassment of being related to the enslaver led a lot of people to say that they had Native American or indigenous heritage when they really just had white heritage. And I think that, this isn't just me talking. I mean, this book, it's
No,
been,
it's the common threads.
yeah. But the last point I want to make, because I don't want to dominate the interview. It is an
No,
interview.
it's an interview about your book. So no, you
Right.
do. It's your half out.
But the last thing that I wanted to say was that um, I never got to meet my great great grandmother. All I did was hear about her secondhand. But one thing that I was told was how mean she was and how she used to beat us in the fields when my daddy had his farm if we weren't working fast enough. She was a mean old lady, I was told. And this was an uncle who was in his 90s in 1991. But he never told me that she was enslaved. He just told me that she was a mean old crazy lady. When I pieced her life, when I went back and studied my great great grandfather on my mother's side and my great great grandmother on my father's side, I saw what their life was like day to day. And in particular, Grandma Charity lived under a law called the Slave Code of Alabama of 1852. And this was a code that governed every aspect of Black life, not just enslaved people, but free Black people as well. See, a lot of people say, well, my ancestors were free. We weren't enslaved, but that doesn't mean you were free because they still had to live under the slave code of Alabama, which in many states, slave codes meant Black people couldn't stay for more than 6 months. And if
Sometimes
they
30
stayed long,
days.
right, or they would be put in slave. So you know all of that, so I won't go back over that. But I will say this. When I looked at that slave code and I saw all of the laws that governed us, what was the penalty if it wasn't death? 39 to 100 lashes from the justice of the peace. And when I kept going back into the history, then I saw, wait a minute. So you mean to tell me that before these systems were established in America, they were doing this in the United Kingdom? and that their whole system, the justice of the peace system upon which the slave code rested, came from them, that they had an exceedingly violent society of whipping and flogging, and it was brought here. And so Grandma Charity had to live a life where if she left the plantation, she had to have a pass. And if she didn't have a pass, or if 4 Black people were having a meeting without a Black person, a white person present, that meant everybody got whipped. And who did they get whipped by? By the police? No, they weren't police. Every white man between ages of 18 and 45 had to do 1 night a week of slave duty. And what that meant was they did the slave patrol duty. And it would, all of them had a whip and all of them had a gun. So whether you had slaves or enslaved people or not, you were still supporting a governmentally codified system that was set up to use violence to extract labor out of our people and to whip our people into passivity. And when I looked at the juvenile court records from the slavery era, but even after that, in the early 1900s, I found a case where a judge had sentenced a young Black boy to go to a juvenile facility. And he said, we can't just send him there. We have to whip that Negro because everybody knows the character of a Negro and that they only respond to the lash. And when I found that out, when I saw that, and when I saw that reading and writing was something that Black people would be getting 39 to 100 lashes for reading, I then realized why people would call me white when I got the A's on the paper. Because I started to understand that a lot of these beliefs are rooted in the American heirloom. That whipping is a part of a colonial society, and not just whipping, but the idea that we're going to feed the Black people the intestines, the idea that a Black person should never read, that going into a library would be a crime, that they could be punished or maybe even killed for. And when you really start to see it, you start to see how the government codified this system that our ancestors lived under. So why then would a woman who was enslaved for 25 years in bondage, who was sexually assaulted and all of these things, and whipped at the end of the day if she didn't meet her quota on the cotton production, when her son got a farm, why wouldn't she take on the role of the overseer? Black people are not superhuman or subhuman. We have the same psychological effects that anybody who goes through trauma goes through. We're not built more for trauma. And so this book opened my eyes. Studying this book opened my eyes to see the modern connections and to understand, not to judge my parents for the brutality. And you'll see in the book that there's a situation that's really, really tragic that happened to me as a child as a result of discipline. But not to judge my parents through that lens, and to understand that the normalization of all of this led us to internalize a lot of these things and take ownership of pathologies that were not ours, that came from white people. And I think this book is not meant to beat anybody over the head with the history that everybody's trying to run from. It's really telling the truth about the history through the story of one Black American boy and one Black American family, a devastating account of truth, to the point that I hope this is an American classic, because we need our children to know from whence we came and the fact that we thrived, not always because of America, but most often despite America.
Okay, I do have a question. Are both sides of your family from Alabama?
No, my father's side is from Alabama, and my mother's side, that great-great-grandfather who was enslaved for 16 years and then ran away and enlisted in the Civil War and was wounded in the Civil War. So this is a man who went through bondage and then a Civil War, okay? And then he started a farm. And when he started a farm, the discipline was whipping his children with the leather from the horse's harness. Now, where do you think he got that from? But my great-grandfather, that was his childhood. And that was what he chose to do with his children. They built beautiful farms. They moved to South Dakota, and they were some of the first Black people in South Dakota. The Blakey family, they're written about in books, and they were Titans. I'm so proud of my family's legacy. But the one thing that was really hard was the legacy of slavery and a lot of the different things that made it, that made childhoods traumatic because of a lot of the things that weren't confronted. For instance, that great-great-grandfather from Missouri, I found the ad that says at the top, public sale of Negroes, and he's listed as a 10-year-old boy. And in that ad, we see why my family to this day, when we have a family reunion, we have 3 different last names, but we're from the same family. How is that? Because of that transaction in 1858, when they were all sold and separated from one another. Thank God that my great-great-grandfather, after the Civil War, went back and found his family. But, so yeah, my family, the truth is, foundational Black Americans, a lot of us go back to the South. And like you, I was raised in the church. I spent my whole childhood and a lot of my adult life around gospel music and singing in churches. And for me, that was the power. A lot of people have been have strayed from the church for different reasons, usually because of people, not necessarily because of God. But for me, I trace anything great that I've ever done to that community that I grew up in at Mount Olivet Baptist Church. And I'll tell you, when we walked into the service and devotional was coming on, and you remember they would have the elders up in front, and some of those ladies were 90 and 89, and some of them were over 100. Mother Massey, she was the matriarch of our church, and I would walk in and they would be singing, and I didn't know what it was. I didn't know what they were doing, but I knew that there was something spiritual in those melodies. When I went back and I really studied it, I found out that those were people who were the children and grandchildren of the people who survived slavery and then came out and sharecropped, built farms, and did all of the things that led to the revolt of Reconstruction when they were so jealous of our success. And so I'm just saying that, yeah, my family's from the South, and I love Black people from the South because they haven't gotten the credit for the movement that they led. And there are 8 to 9 million survivors. That's what I call you. If you're from the South before 1964, you lived through not segregation, as I was taught, but you lived through apartheid. Apartheid that was not just violent, but a crime against humanity. As I said, I've had a family member murdered every generation since 1837, usually over land or livestock. And our country allowed and codified that violence and has never paid a dime of reparations to the Black people who are living today. Okay, we don't have to go back to my great-great-grandmother. We can go back to my father. We can go back to that 80-year-old woman who recommended my book as she was raised in the South. Those people were not born. I've been here. My family has been here since the 1600s, and I descend from Revolutionary War soldiers and soldiers on both sides of the Civil War. But I'm the first person in my family, first generation, to be born equal to a white person. So we have to, on paper, and so we have to understand that racial equality is a new concept in America. It's only 60 years old. My father was not born equal to a white person, but what do you think he did when he was 18? He enlisted to serve in the United States Air Force at the height of the Vietnam era war. And so we are powerful, patriotic people, and we made it look easy. But this book does not let America go. We have to be complex in our understanding of American history. And this is why books like this are banned.
Okay, so is your book actually banned somewhere? Is on the banned list?
Thank God, no, it hasn't been banned yet. But you know, it's funny because I noticed that it is getting picked up in the South. But you know, in a lot of the libraries I see there are, 100 people waiting lists for the book, right? Um, but I haven't broke into school curriculum yet. And that's a different conversation. Right now, there's an assault on books of truth. Some of our greatest classics. There's a group called Moms for Liberty that has waged all kinds of wars to try to get books pulled, to effectively and successfully get books pulled from the curriculum, which I've always said hurts white children more than it hurts our children. Because our children, we're going to get it to them however we need to get it. We're going to pay attention to our history. But the white child who is going into a more diverse culture than their grandparents' America, they're going to have to be the ones to report to a black person at work, or to have a black professor, or to have a black neighbor. And if they get all clammy and are nervous because they grew up in a homogenous society and neighborhood in a gated community, they won't be able to compete in this world. So it's not just about altruism, it's about capitalism. If we want our children of all races to thrive, they have to be able to survive in a diverse culture, which is the whole reason why this whole DEI, anti-DEI initiative isn't good for anyone, because it basically makes it harder for people who lived in a hyper-segregated environment to be able to thrive when they get into the real world.
Well, Lee, you have given us a lot to think about, and congratulations to you on tracing your family's history
Thank you.
so far back. That's not everybody has been able to do that. So your book is available wherever books are sold, and it's called
I
I
Am
Am
Nobody's
Nobody's
Slave,
Slave.
How Uncovering My Family's History Set Me Free. And I am encouraging this book because it encourages people to have conversations in families that we need to have, whether it's about somebody, different tragedies and traumas that happen, and all of the beautiful resilience and things that were accomplished that we're often not able to hear from or hear about, because many of our elders won't talk about what they lived through, and we miss out a lot. And I guess the last thing I'll say, besides thank you for this prestigious opportunity to appear on your show, is that I also want to build bridges between those of us who grew up in the North and those of us who were from the South and didn't get the opportunity, those of us in the North sometimes, to go down and stay with grandma or auntie and grandpa and uncle and spend the summer in the South. And what that did was it separated our families again. The Great Migration separated a lot of Black families, where you have family members all over the country and you don't know half of them. And so what this book does is to try to bring people together through understanding the power of our people, the resilience of our people, the empowerment of our people, and how we can use family history to unite each other. It's called the Future Method, Family Unity Through Understanding Roots and Experiences.
Okay.
And not being
Well,
afraid.
a lot of Black people are moving back south too.
Yes, I
Since
see.
then, a
I
lot
see
of
that.
people, yeah, that's happening a lot. Well, my last guest is in the queue, and so we need to end the interview. But congratulations on your work. And you are, I know it's very gratifying when something you worked on for a long time is you can say, this is it, it's in my hands, and show it to people and share it with people.
God is good. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. And continued success.
Oh, you too. Keep doing
Okay.
the great work.
All
Thank you,
right.
Seth.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Okay. Well, for those of you who um haven't voted yet for the Black Authors Matter TV Awards show, voting for your favorite interview over the past year in 15 categories, please go online and do so. The last day to vote is Thursday night at midnight. And speaking of awards, we have Tamika Newhouse, and she's just finishing up some wine. So I guess she's relaxing.
It's not gone yet. How is Gwen?
Oh, it's been a while since you've been on the show. And we have awards and we have an event. And so I bring other people on who are doing similar work just to share, let people know about it because each one is different. Our award is only for people who've been on the show. So it's not.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we do what we do in a 1-year span. Every guest on the show is included in the first cut in terms of the nomination process. Okay. So they are all included in 15 categories.
So I can be nominated now?
For next year though.
Oh, okay.
Because it ended March 4th.
Okay.
It goes from March to March. So
y'all better remember me.
No, you'll get an email. You'll get an email before we do it every year before it starts. So we do the first cut. Every guest is included, and then the top 5 vote getters are the finalists.
Okay.
And then people vote again on those, and then the top vote getter is the winner in each of those categories. So our awards are different. Yours, you're getting ready to, you started your process for the AAMBC Book Awards. So tell people what it's about, how they can nominate someone or self-nominate, and what your process is.
So AAMBC Literary Awards, I started, the very first one was in 2009. So a long time ago, y'all. Make me sound so old. But I started because when I used to be in like the MySpace page, the Yahoo groups, and I was discovering a whole bunch of different independent writers that no one was talking about. And so not only were they not talking about them in the sense where their books looking on the bookshelves, they were on the billboards and magazines, books becoming films, none of that was happening. So they also weren't being awarded or nominated for stuff. And I'm like, well, where is our Grammys? Where our red carpet event? Okay. So it started on MySpace, just honoring independent writers, like the underdogs. And then I always had the vision of creating an experience that kind of reflects what the Grammys is: red carpet, press, live performances, live music, like that whole glam type of experience. And I finally did that in 2015. And so when I began to kind of step into that realm of creating like a production like that, I wanted writers to really understand that you are the real rock star. Because without a writer, you don't have movies, you don't have music, you don't have nothing. It all starts with the written word. But I be looking up, I'm like, we ain't really be, we don't get the invitation to the Grammys like that. We don't get invitations to the Oscars like that. But we got our Screen Actors Guild Awards and the Screenwriter Guild Awards, but it's not really amplified like that, and not for Black writers. So I wanted to kind of step into that space and just create an award show that honors and celebrates. And now it focuses on podcasters, screenwriters, television shows and movie shows, and I mean movies as well as like editors and critics, and then different genres: sci-fi, Christian, nonfiction, romance, female and male author of the year. So and the reader's choice. So I've kind of
Mhm.
created different categories so it can align with what's kind of trending today.
Okay. All right. So your process is different from ours in that our whole well, this is a video podcast. So the whole thing is virtual.
Yeah.
Our show is virtual. Our nomination process is online. Um, when we announce the finalists, we do it. In fact, we'll announce our finalists on next week's show. And then when we do the awards, we have a online award show with bells and whistles, and we have entertainment. And oh yeah, everybody gets an award. They get an actual award that we mail to them. And we do it. We have our team from the book festival, or they're the presenters. So
Okay.
on the virtual screen, each category, they announce the finalists. They have an envelope. We set it up where they have an envelope with a glow seal. They
Okay.
open it and they read the winners. So they don't know who the winners are, you know. So we still have the feel of an award show. And you are so right. In our community, these people are unsung. They
Yeah.
don't really get an opportunity to shine. And they get to shine based on people supporting them. And we have self-published people and established people in the same categories, which really makes it interesting
Mhm.
because it's not just name ID. It's the vote count. It's number. So if you have
It's
support,
from the public. The people are
yes,
voting.
yes. So sometimes the winners are surprising in the categories because it's about some people, they really go all out. They get their sorority or their fraternity to vote,
Mhm.
all their friends. They really go all out to get the support. And so um we do the whole thing virtually, but that's not what you do. You have a whole event with like
Oh
so
man, Miss Gwen, when I tell you it is, so now we do like all the nominations, so anybody can be nominated, right? So you
okay,
can send your name in to be nominated, and
okay,
then we kind of gather all those nominations and we come up with like what's the majority, and so then we create the nominees, and so then
okay,
we reveal those nominees. The revealing of the nominees is always virtual like that as well. And then we'll do like in Atlanta, I'll do like a mixer, like a little gathering and things like that. And then the actual award show, it's a lot. It is a lot because it is a live production. It is a live show. We have a couple hundred people that come out each year, and I try to infuse as much media as possible. But the
mhm,
reason why I include the entertainment industry, like it may be somebody that is on a show on Stars or a show on BET or a show on Netflix, or they're a film producer, and there may be like a popular or rising musician that's performing. The reason why I have these people at the award shows because they have influence. And so I'm trying to ensure that the industry, as far as the books that we're in, they're getting that exposure and it kind of complements one another. And then also it looks good for sponsors. So the sponsors want to see the influencers, but it is
right,
hard. It's a lot. It's a very tedious production to put on. And I didn't go to film school. I didn't go to, to no production, nothing. I just really I'm self-taught, and I just really just understood like, okay, you got to do this to do this to do that to do that. Cool. I'm going to do it. And
okay.
it's a process. It's really, really tough. And so last year I was able to record the whole show, and we're currently shopping it right now for networks.
Well, good for you. Well, you're in the same category as Tyler Perry. He taught himself how to do movies and write movies and do
Exactly.
plays. He's
Exactly.
self-taught. You have to step out. You have to be bold. You can't be squeamish. You have to be fearless.
Mhm.
But you have to have integrity too, because bad news travels faster than good news. And so,
Absolutely.
you know, you have to make sure that you do what you say you're going to do.
It's
And
funny you
so,
said that, right? Because last year there was a influencer that was nominated. Now nominations are public, so people can see their names. But
okay.
people at this particular now this has happened almost every year. And it's always somebody get nominated that people don't like, right? And that's what they want to talk about. That's what they want to get online and talk. Oh, why they nominate them? And I'm like, well, the people kind of did that, like. But all these other people are nominated. Y'all don't want to talk about them. You only want to talk about this one thing that you don't like. And I think that on social media, people get so caught up in the negativity, like, because that's what goes viral. People love negative stuff. And I'm like, why do
Unfortunately, you're
I?
right. Bad news travels fast.
Yes.
People say good news travels fast, but no. Bad
It
news
travels. It
travels 10
travels
times
slow.
faster than good news.
It-
So now our process, the whole thing is just vote. It's just pure numbers. It's pure votes. So if anybody's mad, they can't be mad about the people who voted. It's just numbers. Now we haven't experienced that. And then we've done it. We started it. Well, the show started in 2020, July 2020. So we did the first awards in March. That was when we thought of it. And so, well, March, so May. So every May is when we have our award show. So
Okay.
it's from March to March for the voting. And then we have the award show in May after, I mean, the inclusion of guests is from March to March. The
Okay.
voting is in March till the 1st of April. Then the second round of voting is from like the middle of April to the end of April. And then the awards is in the middle of May. So ours is not controversial because it's purely vote. It's everybody's nominated at first, everybody's included. So there's nobody left out.
I'm not trying to be controversial at all,
Everybody. No, I'm not
y'all.
trying to be
I'm not trying to
but
be.
you know what? I don't care what you do, Tamika, you're gonna have naysayers.
Yo,
You know,
I've had my fair share.
the only way you can not have naysayers is to not do anything. So if you step
Yep.
out and say, okay, I'm gonna do this, you're gonna always have people who think they could do it better, but they ain't doing it. So,
And you'll
talk
have
is
people that
cheap.
sit back and watch
Yes,
what you
yes,
doing, then
yes.
go and do it and act like they
Well,
better.
well, they'll try to do it too. See, I not we can make things look easy. A lot of
Yeah,
times
because we
people
don't
will
we don't
step
really show
out and
that it's
try
a
it
lot.
and they'll do it once or twice and
And
lose
then they
their
go.
shirt and then they're gone because they think
Yep.
it's a money thing when yeah, everything has to make money to succeed. You can't go broke. You can't lose money and stay around with anything. But it's really more about honoring the people, having something nice to recognize people in this space that get very little recognition.
I agree. And it's I mean it's you kind of have to. So I've been 2009 is a long time ago. It's a long time ago, and I've had my experience of positivity and negativity as well. And as much as I love my people, sometimes we still get caught up in negativity. And you have to really appreciate. And Miss Gwen been doing it longer than me.
I had to grow a thick skin, Tamika.
I know you did. I can just imagine because I know my experiences, and I had people be really mean, and I've had people like fake the funk, like really like just be like fake, and I'll be seeing them like Lord, you gotta get them, Lord. They not doing right. They being mean to me, and I could just imagine what you have experienced over the years, and the fact that you still doing it means that the good is outweighing the bad
Yeah.
and you enjoy doing what you're doing, and you just gonna focus on that. Because honestly, that's why I'm still here. Because if it
Yeah.
wasn't for that, like our people can run us off. As much as they say create spaces for us and buy black this and buy black that, y'all can be mean. Y'all can
I
be silly.
concur. I concur.
Y'all can
Some
be
of the
yeah.
worst, some of the meanness, and And I know people might think something different, but some of the meanest feedback I've gotten is from our people.
From our people, and they can be entitled, and I'd be like,
Yeah,
I
I mean
work for you.
it's yeah,
I don't work.
it,
I don't have to do this.
it's true. And you know, people will question your motives and all kinds of things. And accuse you of things you haven't even thought about. That's what
Yeah,
you
I'm
know.
like, oh, I could do that.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, and you know, so what I used to in the early day, and I can say this now because it's behind me several years, but I used to literally cry. You know, nobody saw me cry except my close family.
Right, right.
You know, but I used to literally cry from just the meanness.
Yeah.
You know, but then so in order for me to get past that and get behind me, I had to develop an FU attitude.
Absolutely. I've
That's what
had.
I had to do because you know, I know that the effort and the product is great,
It
but not
is.
everybody can understand what it takes to do it. They have no idea. They have no
Everybody's
clue.
not gonna understand.
No.
And it does, and sometimes you gotta cry to kind of just kind of purge some of that heaviness.
Yes. Yes.
I've
Just the
had plenty
person
of
having
nights crying.
that's a good way
Yeah.
to say it.
I had plenty of moments like that, especially behind people that have been in your personal space or you've been on the phone with them, and then they turn around and do something. You be like, "Oh my gosh, like really them?" And so it's more of not only building tough skin, but letting go of that space where you're naive. Because
Yes.
I definitely was naive, and just accepting people for who they are. And when you know better, you do
Do
better.
better. Mhm.
And
That's
that's
true.
it.
And then what I had to also do is I had to create a very small circle, a very tight circle, a very
I
tight
have a
team.
triangle.
Yeah. Yeah.
Ain't even got no circle.
Whatever works, but it's a tight circle.
Yeah.
And it's rare that anybody new is let into the circle because you got to prove yourself for about 5 years. I have to see 5 years of you being a genuine person before I can consider that.
Yep. Yeah.
And I'm not
And
exaggerating the 5 years either.
no, at this point,
I,
Miss Gwen, it's like I can be nice and cordial with anybody.
yes,
That
yes,
personal space, I'm
yes.
good. I done
You're
have
right.
children, and my children all pretty much grown now. I could be buddies with y'all. I got my siblings, and I got my bloodline. And when I see y'all, I could be friends with y'all. But at the end of the day, my very best friend is gonna be the person I see when I look in the mirror, and that's it.
Yeah, I hear you.
And my partner, and my partner.
Yeah, I hear you. Because it's when you step out and do something different, you, you really the slings and arrows come your way, but it's very gratifying. Now, what is your timeline for your process?
So, nominations will open up at the top of the year. So it's public nominations. You got to send us the names, and that will close in early February. And then in February, we reveal the nominees. And so then you can vote going into the month of March, all the way up until I want to say it's April. No, it's like April 14th. It's like it's sometime in April, y'all.
Okay,
Y'all gotta go to the AAMBC to look. I should know these
okay,
dates. I'm sorry. But it's
I know.
sometime early April.
Okay,
And then we are going to reveal the nominees in May. And then we're gonna host a gathering during Black Writers Weekend in August.
okay. So when is your actual awards show?
May 24th.
Okay. Now I've seen two things from AMBC, so I want to make sure I understand which one is which or whatever. There's one thing that says you can enter people's names and
Uh-huh.
nominate people. It was
Mm-hmm.
like a step 2, 3, 4, and 5 of that.
Mm-hmm.
Then I saw something else that said there was small groups of people who were nominees.
Mm-hmm.
already. So what's the difference between the two? Because
So
the voting one, I saw them both in the last week.
okay. So when you have to be nominated first. So we do a public nomination. So that's not like an in-house thing. So the
Okay.
public was sending names, and so that's where all that is come. That's where all people are posting, "Hey, nominate me." So you
Okay.
have a public nomination process.
Okay.
Then we select from what was sent in. We select the official nominees.
Okay.
So the official nominees is now what you're seeing now. Like where are now the nominees have been announced and revealed. Now you gotta vote.
Okay.
Once you vote, then we reveal the winners. So
Okay.
the three-part series.
Okay. All right. And you have like a red carpet thing. Do you have a well, I guess it's the red carpet where people stand in front of a backdrop, well, step and repeat or whatever, and take pictures. And
Mm-hmm.
they walk in on a red carpet, or how does that whole thing work?
So the beautiful thing about that particular experience is we invite a lot of media, like a lot of bloggers and media there. So my goal is to mimic the Grammys, to mimic the Image Awards,
Okay.
to mimic the Oscars. Now we ain't
Okay.
on that level just yet, but
No,
just the blueprint.
I
So
mhm.
bringing in media and people that can talk about the awards. So when you are like even Getty Images, we have come out every year to capture our nominees and our attendees. So you'll come on there and it's very formal. So you got to be
Okay.
on, like come and looking your best, like your Sunday's best, even more. And so
Okay.
we take pictures, you're getting interviewed as well. And those interviews go out to different outlets. And I do that because I want those people that walk in the red carpet to be amplified. I want them to be seen. Like it's like creative. You'll see it, Miss Gwen, you'll see it all the time. There's red carpet events everywhere. But
Mm-hmm.
who's actually there? Like who's in the room? Like, is it people in the room that's going to like help my career? Is it people in the room that I can talk to, talk about my project with? Are there financiers, investors, producers, publishers, agents? Or are they in the room? I make sure they're in the room because I'm physically doing the work. Me and my team, we're inviting them and we're bringing them into the space. So you get to come to the awards, but you never know who's standing next to you. So even like last year, we had Rodney Barnes and we had um even one year I had Amber Grimes. That was last year as well. And so she is the VP of LVRN Records. And so that's a major recording agency down here. Like she manages Summer Walker. She manages Slack, Southside Boogie. Like she manages like big stars. But she is also has a book club. And so
Oh,
she's stepping
okay.
into that space now to amplify writers in the publishing space, and she has the influence. So I'm making sure it's influential people in the room because it really helps the artists to get seen, they get the network and connect those dots. So we're not just taking pictures for Instagram, y'all. We're not trying to meet up with Facebook friends. We're not doing that. We meeting up with some real people here, some real connections.
Now, can people see it anywhere live, or can they see the recording of it after the fact?
So I have not released the recording because I'm selling it. So the only thing I can do is
Oh,
follow
okay.
on, on social media, and we're putting up clips. So there are clips and parts from the performances, from the acceptance speeches, floating around on social media. But the actual award show, I haven't put it out there.
Okay, well, if you're trying to stop it, then I can understand why, and that's great. And now, give us the website again because we're at the end of our show.
Okay.
So give us the website, well, the awards and the website.
So the website is the AAMBC Awards with an S.com. And on social media is AAMBC Awards on Instagram and TikTok and Facebook as well. So just search AAMBC Awards and it'll pop up and you'll see it.
Okay, and Tamika's been around a long time. I met Tamika years ago. She came to, I think, our first or our second National Black Book Festival, and that's been
Yep.
17 years ago. So, and she was just up and coming, just getting started as an author. And
Yep.
now she's gone on to do bigger and better things and still write from time to time.
Yeah, I'm still a Texas girl at heart. You know, one day I'm gonna make it back to National Black Book Festival. But I definitely, Miss Gwen, I thank you so much for thinking of me, inviting me on to talk about the awards show. I still always see what you're doing. I'm still always reading for you, and that door has not closed; it's always open. So whatever you need from me, if you need us to share, amplify, whatever you're doing, please just let me know. Like I'm only like an email or a call away. My number's still the same. I think we got each other's number, but I'm gonna see.
Okay, well, I can always DM too. Okay. Okay, well, thanks, Tamika, and congratulations on your event. And I know it'll be a great success.
Thank you.
Okay, have a great night.
You too.
Well, that's the end of our show for this week. What we're going to be doing next week, we have 3 guests, and then at the 8:30, the last half hour, we'll be releasing the names of the finalists based on your votes. So I am Gwen Richardson, your host for tonight, signing off. You all have a great week, and we'll see you next Tuesday.
Thank you for tuning in, and join us next Tuesday at 7 p.m. Central, 8 p.m. Eastern for another edition of Black Authors Matter TV.